So we'll sit for half an hour or so, a little bit, and I understand people will be coming in someone will come in at 5:30. It's just sound happening, someone coming in. It's kind of like meditating in real life, right? People are coming and going, their sounds. I can do a little bit of guidance in the beginning, but then I mostly actually like to, it's a thing. I don't like guided meditations. I don't like to listen to guided meditations. I know this is like, right, there are apps and everything I teach, but I don't particularly love to do them. I like to sit in silence. I'll do a little bit of guiding at the beginning and then we'll sit together, okay? And so really just allowing yourself to get, to be as comfortable as you can be in the situation, whatever that is to do. It's unfurrowing the brow and unclenching the jaw, releasing at the belly. Maybe it's unbuttoning a button or something, raising and lowering shoulders. And then finding that natural rhythm of the breath. Once you've made contact, sometimes just getting a sense of coolness on the floor, perhaps, or bottom on the cushion. And then, where is it that you're noticing the breath? And that could be the warm or cool air at the nostrils, or it could be the rise and fall of the chest or the belly. Or perhaps it's more the whole body, just a sense of the body sitting. Sometimes it's described as being almost like a balloon expanding and contracting. Or what you're doing is we sit and know that we're sitting. So just settling into that for a moment as best you can. It may be easier for you or more predominant for you to notice sounds. It could be the sound of my voice, a hum in the room, sounds from outside. And notice how you don't have to make any effort or do any work to hear those sounds. The sounds are coming to the ear door. Same with sensations. You may notice sensations arising and passing. Could be a tingling or itch, numbness, coolness, warmth. What's more important than a meditation object, that breath, body, sound, sensation, is our relationship to that object. So just being with any of it with a degree of kindness, degree of ease, knowing that the mind is going to go away into sleepiness or thought, just gently coming back. The mind gets lost or confused, can always come back to that simple in and out breathing, the nostrils, the chest or the belly, the whole body breathing. Sometimes it can be helpful just to breathe in, breathe out, count 1, breathe in, breathe out, count 2, count up to 5 or 10, and back down again. I invite you now to just turn attention or give attention to yourself. So we'll offer a little bit of metta. If that's difficult, then find an easy being, someone that's easy and not too complicated, to offer some really simple well wishes, love to. Can be an aspect of ourselves or a different version of ourselves, a younger version of ourselves. Or simply receive it from me. May you be happy and peaceful. May you be safe and protected. May you live with ease and well-being. Of course, you can use those phrases or ones that have meaning for you, and allowing your attention to rest on those phrases in the same way that attention rests on the breath. May you be happy and peaceful. May you be safe and protected. May you live with ease and well-being. And may you all, without exception, awaken and be free. Thank you for your practice. There was a whole plan for a very specific talk that I was going to do, and I actually don't want to. I don't want to give the talk. It's something different. It's just there's some just this more it's freestyle remix of this. It's the others. It's just I'm so used to teaching at big places now and having to curate talks to be recorded and things that are being transcripts for books, and this is like a chapter for a book, and it's like I'm sick of it. I'm really sick of it. I don't just get to just be anymore that often. So, and had some pretty wild stuff come up today, and I thought that's what I'll talk about. So. And it's usually what I like to most talk about anyways, metta and karuna, or metta and compassion, two sides of the same coin. And no matter what subject I get, that's where I end up heading anyway. So, so it's better just to be truthful about it all. I'm going to start with this. So I was sitting in a cell phone lot at the airport, and the engine was idling, and I was there to pick up my wife and child, and the plane was late, and all that was totally and completely ordinary. And then the plane landed, and they didn't get off the plane. And at first, I think I was pretty reasonable, and I parked, and then I went in to check the board, to see what was going on, and my phone, and I looked up again and again and again at this board, almost kind of like willing the plane there, willing them there, and at some point in time, there was quite a bit of anger as minutes went by, and then an hour or so went by, and I found myself in the car, I think looking for old cigarettes somewhere in the car to smoke, because was one of those things I'd kind of quit, I had strategically had things placed in various places around the car, or jackets, or the house somewhere. And I could feel it when this moment when concern tips into something pretty sharp, which was really just fear and anger. And turns out my mind started to really build this entire world around something that had gone wrong, something that I had missed, something that I should have known. And the anger arrived really, really quickly, sort of wearing this cloak of responsibility I was supposed to have. And so it turns out they didn't show up. And eventually I made my way back to the city. And it was May 4th, I remember, it was May 4th, it was 2004. I was heading back to the mission, and I go to the makeout room, sitting at the makeout room. It's a bar. And Tracy Chapman is playing a secret show at the makeout room. It's a makeout room, so I can't possibly forget that. So I'm there for the show, and actually not really able to enjoy the show because I was actually supposed to be picking up my wife and child, and then eventually I make my way home, and we still have a landline at this time. I'm living on 24th Street, 3130, something like that, up that way. And my mother-in-law calls and says, they're not coming. She wants a divorce, they're not coming. I'm like, oh, I've missed something somewhere along the way. Clearly, I have missed something. And really, completely, totally clueless. And that all came up. So that was a whole chapter of his life unto itself, which actually is the chapter that brought me really heavy into practice. You know, my first teacher came out of that. Most of my retreats and things came out of that time period of life. And it came up because just yesterday, I'm at the airport, and I'm waiting to pick up my daughter, who's now 24, sorry. And she doesn't show up, right? And we've both been through this before. Her as a baby, and me as a much younger father. But only she texts a little bit later and says, well, do you know how many times you haven't shown up for things? And so there's a whole context and story for this. Clearly, we're not on good terms. Let's just say that. It's estrangement. So, and I bring all this up because someone asked me, like, what's the edge of practice? Where's the edge of your practice? That's the edge of my practice. That's the edge of my practice. It's the reason that I am, that metta and karuna are the foundational practices that I do. Those are the foundational practices that I teach because they help me from tipping over into anger or despair or heavy depression or the combination or any of that combo, or particular numbness that then has me looking for, old vices, things that I am like 32 years clean from, but it's just there at the edge, right? So she and I have been going back and forth for years. I don't know. It's been actually 10 years since I've actually seen her in person. So part of me believed this wasn't going to actually happen anyway, right? It's been 10 years in person. You know, I know her life through the internet. I know her life through social media. I know her life through her sister, but I try not to have her sister be there's two different marriages. To have her sister be the middle person in between. And the last response I had after she said, "Well, you've missed all these things," she just said she decided not to come, and that, well, you're a meditation teacher. Deal with it. You can deal with this. You can deal with this, right? So it's all like just incredibly like raw, painful stuff. And in that moment, when any of that happens, do you think it's like easy for me to deal with that? No. God, I'm like screaming, kicking, crying. Like it's all happening. It's all happening. But then at some point in time, I am able to feel my feet on the floor, sitting down, and I am able to understand that this is pain that I'm meeting. I am meeting pain here, and that I have a baseline of metta practice, a baseline of love that just does not go away. It gets covered over. Everything gets covered over at some point in time, but it does not go away. So that if I can just get just a degree of that to touch this pain in myself before I get to hating myself, that kind of thing, then I'm fine. I'm fine. And that's what happened. I was able to just actually put a physical hand on my heart and my belly like this. And there's no formal practice. There's no formal words that I'm using. It's feeling it. It's feeling it. And this is what compassion is. This love meeting suffering and the arising that comes out of that. And always the thing that gets me is that I know when that is actually really there, when it's settling, when I really settle in that place, then there's actually a little bit of joy. It's the weirdest thing. This whole thing happened. The estrangement happened. She didn't show up. I'm pissed. I'm angry. There's shame, embarrassment, guilt, all this stuff there. And when I touch that pain, and I know that I can stand in it, and I know that I can be in it, there's a little bit of joy that's actually there. It's not jumping up and down, happy joy, but it's a deep contentment that like, I'm gonna be okay. I mean, I have made it through all kinds of things. Made it through all kinds of things, and that the last time the same thing happened was 2004. That's when the first no show of the divorce happened, and I was very much a different person then. I had already started practicing a little bit, but as I said, I was still smoking. It's likely that when I showed up at the bar that I had a firearm on me. Very likely that was the case. Is most definitely not the case now. Far from it. And so the joy that arises out of that allows me to be with it, to meet that edge of my practice, which then I went from there. That happened, and I immediately then turned to my metta practice and my compassion practice for her. And and then there's actually more joy that arises because I'm actually able to offer compassion and metta to her quite easily, because I can only imagine the suffering that she's in, the suffering that she's going through. I can only imagine. She's pretty young. She's like, And I have like, honestly, there's a little bit of laughter too. I was like, girl, you're building some potential for some ridiculously expensive therapy bills here. This is like, this is nuts. And that's how I've had to roll with it of late. And then it all swings the other way at some point in time, right? All this has happened. And then right before, I get here, it's late in the afternoon, I'm still over in East Bay. And I'm angry all over again. Right? And I decide that I'm going to send her a text. Which I do pretty regularly. She doesn't, it's rare that she responds to any of it, occasionally. And there I am standing in the kitchen, with my phone in the hand, and I'm writing this message to her. And I type the message, and it's not long, it's actually just quite honest, simple message. And I think it's a text that's not asking for much of anything. It's not demanding any resolution. It's not trying to fix anything. It really is just this offering of truth. And I decided to not send it. And not because it wasn't that it was kind or that I hadn't thought it through. I didn't send it because just in that moment I could feel what was underneath it. And it is sometimes it's not wisdom that stops it. It ends up being tenderness that stops it. Where that love meets the pain again and compassion. And the fear of what tenderness might touch. And then I keep finding out again, there's just levels to all of this. It just keeps going. And so I stood there much longer than I needed to, reading the text again and again and again, adjusting the words, and really trying to find the right phrasing that somehow could protect me from what might come back or what might not come back. Just the right thing to curate the right words. And at some point, something really softened. And it wasn't the certainty of the situation or the situation itself. I noticed my feet on the floor. I noticed my breath again. I noticed the hum of the refrigerator in the back. And I really realized that this moment actually didn't need to have a future yet. I actually didn't need to do this. And that the suffering wasn't in the text itself, or whether that text was being sent. The suffering was in how far ahead my heart had already gone, how far ahead my head had already gone. It was all out there, right? So living in replies that aren't here, bracing for silence or contraction that hadn't happened, rehearsing outcomes that aren't here. So I didn't send it. And I didn't send it it wasn't avoidance at all, and it wasn't withdrawal, but it was just this act of staying with the truth that was already here. Staying with the tenderness without asking it to hurry towards any resolution. That right now I'm sad. Feel that sadness. Right now I'm angry. Feel that anger. Right now there's shame and embarrassment. What does that feel like? Can I find that in the body? Can I feel that in the body? Does this have a flavor, a texture, a color? And so the edge of my practice there is it's really looking at, sometimes the practice looks like letting the message rest in the hands rather than being sent. And not because we don't care, but really because we're done living one step ahead of where life actually is and just being with life. And for those that were some of you that were on the retreat, or one of the retreats that I was on just recently at Spirit Rock, I've been experimenting, sort of writing some things, or creating translations that really make sense for me. So the third noble truth, that translation I had was, when you stop chasing what you think you need, the grip loosens. When the grip loosens, the struggle stops. Without the struggle, the cycle breaks. When you stop chasing what you think you need, the grip loosens. When the grip loosens, the struggle stops. Without the struggle, the cycle breaks. And I think that's often what I'm seeing now. Yeah, my mind wants that whole situation with my daughter to be different, to be other than it is, and it's not. And I've been able to be with it. I can find myself there. I'm not lost in it. I'm not wallowing in it. And I think the heart can really learn to meet heat without becoming heat, and the heart can learn to meet cold without freezing, and it can learn to meet all of the seasons. It can learn the wisdom of the seasons, when to endure, when to soften, and when to wait. And that the path again and again and again shows me that it's this steady training, returning to what is actually here. Noticing when the mind races ahead, softening the grip, choosing again and again to not make things worse. And oftentimes I think I've taken to saying that sometimes when people say, well, what has the practice gotten you? It's like, I've learned to not make things worse. I go for the low bar. I've learned to not make things worse. So this part of this edge of practice, how I have dealt with my edge of practice, or being with the edge of the practice, is actually again and again. It's nonstop metta practice. I just don't stop doing it. I don't stop doing metta practice. I don't stop doing compassion practice. I'll do, we always say the stealth metta. You'll hear stealth metta, just doing metta at any point in time during the day. And that's what I do. More so than a formal practice at all, is doing it when and wherever I am. And I had a great chance. I took an Uber over here, and oftentimes now, it's just me in the car with this opportunity to offer metta to the person that's there. And in this case, it was great. It was a guy. He said his name was John. There's no way in hell this dude's name was John, but John from Afghanistan. He's a baby, 10 months old, and he shows me a picture of his baby, and he gives me this picture of his baby. So I'm riding all the way over from Berkeley with this picture of this baby in front of me and talking to him about his baby all the way here, and being able to offer metta to him and to his child. And while that was happening, there wasn't a single, was nothing about the anger, the shame, the guilt, and all of this with my daughter. None of that's there. The mind isn't going to hold both of those things. And it's not a bypass, because the mind's just going to, it's like, bro, go ahead and do this, but I'll meet you around 11 o'clock tonight, right? It's going to be there at some time, so it's not a bypass. But it's been an absolute game changer for me to do that. And I come back to that again and again. I come back to the beginning of my own metta practice at some point living out at 34th and Judah and taking the train in all the way downtown. Hating anybody and everything, right? Because I had moved from the mission and I'm out there, and every morning you get up, it's cold and it's wet. And I get on the in Judah, miserable, angry. I know everybody's story. It is a different life now as I'm navigating around the city, whether it's here or Boston or New York, anywhere else. It's a different thing to navigate from this place of if not wonder, then love, or at least openness, or at least a chance. And this is a very different life, right? This was a practice that I thought was completely and totally sentimental and sappy and ridiculous and made up. These people in Marin, Jack and those people made this shit up, or saw it at best as a secondary practice, and seeing that it is a primary practice. And again, it doesn't even have to be done formally, right? You can't possibly do your insight practice, Vipassana practice, or whatever it is. You can't possibly do that to any fruition and not experience metta. It's not possible. It's not possible, right? Once the mind connects again and again and again and again and again with whatever the object is, then there's going to be some settling. When that settling is there, just the next step along the way, if you were to look at something like the 5 jhanic factors, the next step along the way will be metta. Happiness, joy is what arises out of that. So I always say, right, despite your best efforts to escape it, to not have it, to not want it, it's going to be there. So you don't actually have to do it formally that way. And then there are times to have to experience a concentrated mind, a mind concentrated on metta as an incredibly beautiful or wonderful thing, to allow the mind to not be moved by anything and to be steadied by, or to build great samadhi with loving kindness, whether it's through phrases or images or a felt sense. The mind is incredibly strong. My mind has never been stronger or clearer. When allowing the mind to be in a state of metta over a good amount of days and days and days, or weeks and weeks and weeks, or months and months and months. And the clarity that comes with that once I'm back home or in the community is actually quite incredible, because your default my default went from being wary, sort of side-eyeing everyone or knowing stories, to one of let's see, right? I mean, it can go any direction, but initially it's let's see. It's trusting. It's not doormat, which oftentimes is what people think. It's not it, but the baseline just becomes loving kindness. The baseline becomes friendliness. I think probably the other edge of practice is actually doing exactly what I'm doing right now. At some point in time, I had early on COVID and long COVID and brain fog and vertigo. And I went from having a little 5x7 card with a couple of bullet pointed notes and offering a talk just off the top of my head, to actually being unable to do that because I can't, most of it I can't remember. And then, and you couple that with when I was a child through some traumatic event, stopped talking and developed a stutter, then there's always a great fear of not having what I need. So then it reverts back to that. And then Gussie shows up. And I decide to just, well, let me see what this is like again. And there's a freedom in just in being, not being carefully curated. I know how to be carefully curated. I can do that, right? Title, description, Dharma seed, carefully curated. It's how you get books published. I know that game very well. But there's a great freedom in just being able to truly speak freely and to see what's here, to see what's on the mind, to see what's on the heart. And it's really interesting because, again, my default for what's on the mind, what's on the heart, is like defaults to metta again, defaults to compassion again. And look at some of the times when this Brahma Vihara, this metta and compassion practice has truly served me well. And recently, this is from a story from many years ago. I had an opportunity to be in touch with a man who we were all linked. We were both linked through ancestors. His being slave-holding ancestors and mine being enslaved folks. We're linked through this in East Texas. And I won't go into the whole of that story, but he and I developed a bit of a friendship just out of, he was looking for some information and I was looking for some information, and someone connected us and we connected via Skype then, and yeah, it was incredibly difficult. He had grown up avowed racist in East Texas, his own words, admittedly so, but his mother had not been, and his mother had just died, and he wanted to honor his mother's history and legacy, and her history and legacy was one of being this advocate and ally in this part of Texas. And she'd been an advocate and ally because when she was a little girl, she had witnessed a public lynching, which used to happen in Texas at that time, early 1900s. And she was traumatized by it all, and this stayed with her whole life. And so he decided at some point to honor her wishes once she died, that he would sort of undo all these years of this sickness that he had, this sickness of racism that he lived with. And so eventually that led him to me. I had family in the area, I had family in that area, and we connected. He essentially was looking for forgiveness for me, and which was just didn't it was a different era, different people, different times, so there was nothing for me to forgive him with. I understood kind of where he was going with that, but we were able to talk about history and get to know each other quite well. It was difficult to do. I'm skipping over some things. It was actually quite difficult to go through all of this with him. And eventually, this was over one phone call. I used my metta practice and my compassion practice to go into the call, to even have the call with him and sustain it while in the meeting with him. And we'd made plans to speak again, but his kids squashed that. He died, and his kids had squashed that because they thought maybe that I would be writing a book about it or making a movie or something. So they didn't want, me to connect with him again in that way. So anyway, after he dies, I end up having to go back to this part of East Texas again because I'm doing more historical research for something, and decided to go to his grave. And so I go to his grave, and there's one thing that he had asked his kids to do. He'd been part of the Sons of the Confederacy. It was a local historical group there that was actually quite cruel. And they had put this on his gravestone, which he'd asked his kids not to do, but they went ahead and did it. And I remember standing in front of his grave site, like tearing up and beginning to cry, and then like freaking out that I'm standing in front of this dude's gravesite with this whole Confederate thing going on, about ready to cry, freaking out about that. But I really saw from that whole experience just how powerful the metta and compassion practice was, by actually using it in those moments with him, by actually using it there. And that was probably the first time of actually really putting it to immediate use kind of thing. We're actually seeing it work. So that was a practice edge that I sat with. Actually, I'll stop there from now. I'm curious about actually your own practice edges, what you're working about, and happy to take any questions or comments as well. But I'm curious about your own practice edge. What's your edge of practice now that you're working with? What's an edge? That's the thing, oftentimes, right? It's kind of like grief too. It's right. The time it takes literally is the time it takes. And it may need a wide berth, a lot of time there. Typically, that's what I've seen with metta in particular, right? When we have a difficult person or someone that I'm, would like to work through something with that's really difficult for me to offer metta. I still have a couple of folks that here and there I can, but for the most part, I can offer them compassion, but metta itself is much harder to do. And all we can do is, right, take it in these little bite-sized chunks, but just that it could be a lot of time. Even with my daughter, even being able to talk a little bit, those first 5 years, the first 10 years that they left, I couldn't approach that in my practice at all. I tried, but then there's like an instant collapse, sort of inward. So I just, here and there, if it came up, and now it is something that I could work with, but it's all these number of years later. Yeah, it could be. Let me answer the other part before I lose that. Around the words, if the words are there, and it doesn't feel like metta or nothing's there, then, or you're saying if the words don't mean anything. If the words don't mean anything, then they don't mean anything, right? It's just because it's intention. The words are so like I use the word happiness in my metta, but it's only because I've used it so often. But it doesn't actually mean happiness to me. It means deep contentment and joy. I say happiness, so the word it's It's just a word, right? So you have to have something that means something to you. If it doesn't mean anything to you, it's not going to do anything, right? That's the engine that makes metta go is just intention. So it's intention touching that, and that makes it go. And oftentimes, with someone that's incredibly difficult to say metta for, again, a metta might not be the appropriate tool. It's like you spin the coin around, and it's actually compassion because there's pain that's there. If there's pain and the resentment that's there, metta isn't the one that probably should be initially used. Initially, maybe it's compassion for self, compassion for them, and then it would be metta practice. But trying to begin from this place of metta, knowing, one, that there's this idea that this relationship should be mended, and that they're really hard for you. All of that's a setup. There's a starting point. Everything's a starting point. It's small, bite-sized pieces. I can. So in that case of this, I always tell them, well, I can say compassion or really offer compassion to him because I believe that views and opinions that clearly something is wrong, or something has been wrong, or something happened at child. I don't know. Like I always say, it dropped on his head. I don't know. So I have compassion for that, for sure. But metta is a little bit different story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Something just came up for me before Devin was offering. I heard the wanting to do it for your mother, like your mother asked for that, like your words were different, like her dying wish. And what came to me is that perhaps your mother was wishing that for you. Yeah.
Thank you. I think, yeah, I mean, maybe it is quite similar to that Buddha that was, covered in plaster, or different stories covered in dirt or rock, and they chipped it away. And right, there's the gold Buddha underneath, the Buddha nature that's actually there. And yeah, and I think underneath all of the gunk, right, all of the built up stuff over the years are these more or less our Buddha nature. And the shame and guilt or different things can be there to protect us. They can be there to mask things. It's all kinds of reasons that something like that could be there. And it's really more important to know what is there. And can you get a sense of the sensations underneath that? Can you get a sense of a feeling underneath that? Can you get a sense of where this lives or where this is living in the body underneath that? And sometimes some of those things end up being much more important because they allow you then to just be with whatever it is that needs to be sat with before moving on to that next step of compassion or metta for someone else. I think there's I think of in my own family, there's a couple of people, that once I'm in their presence, it's just, it's incredibly difficult. I don't know, compassion and metta, I'm confused in their presence. It's just confusion. And so all I can do is I can feel my socks in my feet. I can feel saliva in my mouth. I can feel my fist like this. I mean, I'm not actually going to do anything, but I know it, but there's like the tension is there in my back. And so I feel those things and relax all that. That might be it for the day. That might be the evening. Like I don't even get anywhere from there. It's that, but that is enough, and in that is some compassion, and in that is some metta as well. I mean, the Buddha described, the metta as being non-ill will. That's a low bar. Non-ill will. I'm not hating you. I'll take that. I mean, we want the PT, rapture, pins and needles, like the full-on experience, and that's great. And sometimes we just get not hating. Yeah, it's a spectrum. No. You know why? Well, ADHD mind. This is so. Actually, another thing. I'll never listen to Gussie again. I'll do this. The ADHD mind. This ADHD mind has to have bumpers and guardrails, or it goes off the rails. A bumper guard. Anyway, that occurred. But choosing a thing. I had the same thing, right? There ends up being so many things, and I could go for days and days and days and weeks and retreats after retreat to find something that's going to relieve suffering or be a relief or a release. And I gravitated initially towards things like Goenka retreat or Mahasi method because they were very exact and very precise. So I had to keep myself in this little lane. And then once I was in that lane, I could settle a bit, then I can open up to everything else. So initially I would choose one thing. Typically I would take something like, if I'm home, something like the paramis. So I take one of the 10 paramis and work with that for like over the course of a month. Or with like meditation techniques, typically I'm working with one or two over a long period of time, typically over the course of a year. Like right now, it's mostly in my own practice just at home. If I'm just sitting, it's open awareness, a choiceless attention practice that I'm doing. At different times, it might be the metta practice, or there's other like jhana practice that do, but being at home and traveling back and forth, the jhana practice is harder to do. But if I'm in retreat, then I could do that. But choosing one or two things, pick a lane and be in that lane for a little bit and go. And evaluating the practice. So I was taught to evaluate my own practice within these like 5 to 7 year chunks. So within that 5 years, then every year I kind of choose one or two things that I'm going to take a look at over the course of the year. Last year was compassion and equanimity combination. Metta practice is always there in the background, and a few other things. So choosing one, and it doesn't mean that I've chosen that one and I just always that I actually stay there. That's just that's a misperception. The mind, like I'm doing it wrong, right? That's the mind's way to collaborate in self-deception to make sure that nothing happens. But you're doing it wrong. It's like, yeah. I mean, you could do open awareness practice. You'll never do it wrong. You will never do it wrong. No, Jim, you cannot. I know you can. No, you can't. You can't do it wrong. Can't do it wrong. Just refresh every then. Where's the mind at now? What's happening now? Thank you. Before you said IFS, I was going to say, I thought you were going to ask like something is like, can meditation take care of this? I was like, no, you need like that. The idea of like braided wisdom of actually having multiple modalities sometimes is I find what's most helpful. Yeah. So metta as a weapon. Metta as a weapon. Yeah. I always say, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I can relate to that. I always tell this little story of my mom learning metta, really not having much of an idea of what it is that I do or what it is she believes I'm involved in, but she saw Jack Kornfield on Oprah, the Super Soul Sunday. And Oprah was teaching, or Jack was teaching metta or something, and so because it was on Oprah, and she really liked Jack a lot, she asked me about metta, and she started doing metta. And my mom she has like 8 other brothers and sisters, and this very insular family, so they are their friend circle and family as well. Not a lot of contact with people outside. It's mostly family. So I asked her how one of her sisters, my aunt, was doing, and she's fine, but I've been saying the metta for that heifer every day. Right. So, and I'm like, what? It's like, I'm saying metta for that heifer every day.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, well, that's the use of like metta and heifer being a cow is not. It's not metta. It's actually not metta. It's not loving kindness. But that sort of thing happens. It really lets us know actually where we're blocked and what's happening, and it really lets us know we just back off for that. There are lots of folks that I think over the years and different times that I have, wanted to include in my metta practice or have included in my metta practice, and it just goes off the rails immediately because I'm not present in the moment, or I just have so much with them right now that it's just not going to work. And a lot of times when it is someone that's difficulty, the metta that I'm offering, it is also to soothe and settle this being here. It's to soothe and settle this being here. Anything else is like icing. It's really to take care of and settle what's here first. And sometimes sometimes it's not there. Sometimes it's dry and it's road and it's really not there. We're not connected to it, and it's best just to back off from that and doing compassion practice or offering metta to someone else. I said, and I think I've said in the last couple of retreats, that I typically start when I'm doing formal metta practice, I actually start it with joy or gratitude, so that as I'm going into it, there's some uplift, some brightness or some lightness of mind, so that actually keeps me out of some of those pitfalls of forgetting the words or not really being connected to it at all, because I'm coming into it with some joy and laughter and lightness as well. So sometimes that can be helpful. Yeah, and there's plenty of times when I've just backed off that practice for a while, and then I approach it later, because I notice that when I really want it to be and it's not, then the frustration happens, and then it's just like I'm cycling through, and there's something I'm not seeing, so I just back off the entire thing, and with the breath or with the body or something else as well. And sometimes too, with the metta practice itself, I experiment quite a bit with using a metta song or a metta chant or something, not using the phrases at all, but connecting, because the rhythm and cadence of a chant, it's easy to connect with that and a felt sense and image. So that combination of things, that's an incredibly powerful cocktail, because if you're actually, offering that again and again and again, some little short chant or song, something like that, eventually that becomes, particularly if you're on retreat, that becomes an earworm that you are now listening to. And when you are actually listening to that, right, it's you actually offering this, but eventually when you're listening to it, the heart opens up with that. The mind settles and the heart opens up big time with that. So that's a pretty cool one to actually play with. So like that, just that, I oftentimes, that is running through my head, right? If you say it enough, just throughout your day, here and there, right? You don't have to chant it all day, every day, but just allow that to be in the mind here and there. It's a game changer. It's an absolute game changer. It cuts through all sorts. And if you can actually have the entire thing, and you do dedicate a day or a weekend doing it, and it's the same thing to keeping the mind, keeping the attention on the breath, or keeping the attention on something. It's the object of meditation. So oftentimes I'll do like a weekly Sabbath or power down day, and for that day I may do a practice for just that day. So just doing that over the course of the day, it actually built great samadhi, being able to do that, and it's lightens the body, spirit, mind. Anyway, all right, it's about that time. Thank you all very much appreciate coming out and being able to be here again. I think the last time I was here was at the other building around the corner, and I was staying at Jim's place then. So very much appreciate being back in the city and being able to be here with you all, and yeah, look forward to some other time being with you as well. Okay, so we'll just sit for just a moment. We'll sit. Just allowing ourselves to offer any of this merit to the practice to ourselves, friends and family. Any sense of gratitude or goodness or merit that's been generated here, or that you've generated over the course of the day. Any goodness that's come from your heart. May we all be happy. May we all be peaceful. May we all be safe and protected. May we all live with ease and well-being. And may we all, without exception, okra as well, awaken and be free. Thank you very much.